Hey, listen, I'm excited about this guest. I'm excited about all my guests, but I'm super excited about having Tegan on the podcast today. I'm telling you, this is a story that is life-changing, life-altering. I've had a chance to spend a lot of time with Tegan and hear his story, and it really has challenged me to reflect and really think about what's important in life. You're going to have a chance to hear a glimpse inside of Tegan's story and his world and everything he's experienced. But I'll tell you, there's a couple things that I really want you to hone in on. One is really think about how sensitive life is and what's important. And then two is think about the things you control and how you show up in your life to create a better avenue. I think that authenticity is vital in today's landscape, and it's missing. What I've learned from Tegan is that really to define what's important and then live into that creates an authentic and fulfilling life. And again, I don't want to steal his spotlight. He's going to have a chance to share. And then the other thing is this guy speaks and is beginning to speak all over the place. And if you're looking for a good keynote, somebody that will really have a great story and really connect with your audience, you got to look at bringing Tegan in. But again, we'll get into that as we go. Welcome to the Chad Carden Podcast, where people and culture make all the difference. Our guests are real leaders that are making real impact by creating even better cultures and even better results. We're going to talk about things that most people aren't talking about. We're going to talk about things that leaders are thinking but might be scared to say. We're going to get into issues that can give you practical and tactical ways to set you up for a higher probability of success. First of all, Tegan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know we only have a short amount of time and we could spend hours doing this. So I want to be sensitive that make sure we hit on several things, but I do think it's important that the listeners and the audience really understand kind of who you are and your story and how it's shaped you today. So I'm just going to pass you the microphone and let's just start there and kind of see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, my name's Tagen Higgins. I was born and raised in California, Missouri, a little bitty farm town right outside of Jefferson City. Super tight-knit community. My family, I have two sisters, one younger, one older, two loving parents. I've definitely lived a super blessed life. I've definitely been thrown some curveballs per se, but we all have. That's life. Nobody has a perfect life, and everybody has their own challenges, and everyone has to overcome, and that's exactly what I've done. It's all about taking things one day at a time and steadily improving. And that's what I try to strive for day in and day out. Focus on the positives, focus on the good, and continue to become the best version of yourself.
Yeah, you say curveballs. I mean, you were thrown major curveballs. And listen, I know you're a modest guy, but I mean, you growing up in high school, you were an athlete. You were the star. You were the stud, right? And let's just throw it out there. I mean, you were the stud, and then there was an event in your life that literally changed that all in an instant. Talk to us about that event. Give us a little bit of detail and background about that night and how it shaped kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, certainly. So I was actually a freshman at the University of Central Missouri. Made it through that first semester of school. Probably could have done a little bit better on the book side of things, yeah. But was living life nevertheless. And I ended up coming back home that second semester. It was February 22nd. Came back home. One of my good friends was having a birthday party, and I decided to make the trip back home, make an appearance. See a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a couple months, just because I was an hour and a half away from home. So headed back home, and the night quickly took a turn for the worst. I don't really know what caused my friend to snap and do the unthinkable, but ultimately he went to the back room of the house, grabbed a gun, came into the living room, shot his brother, shot his girlfriend, came into the room I was in, and shot me. I was shot twice, once in the arm, once in the neck. The bullet that entered through my neck is ultimately the bullet that changed my life forever. That bullet took away my legs, took away a lot of things. I lost one of my best friends that night, really two of my best friends. The guy that shot me was one of my best friends, and then when he shot his brother, he was also a very dear friend of mine. And I really had to start from square one. I had to relearn life, learn life without legs. That changed a lot of things, but from that day on, I've definitely gained an appreciation for life. I mean, tomorrow is never promised, and nowhere does it say that tomorrow is promised. But for some reason, a lot of people live as if tomorrow is promised, and they push off a lot of their own challenges and obstacles to tomorrow. So that's ultimately what I've learned, is that tomorrow is never promised, and all that we have is today, and it's all about capitalizing and moving forward, and never letting anything stop you.
Yeah, I'm curious. I know we've talked about this, offline. Did you ever have a gut? Sometimes when life events happen, there's a gut feeling like, should I go? Did you ever think about not going? Were you not going to go that night, or was it just, nope, I was going to go, I was going to plan, and then these events happened?
Yeah, that's the craziest part. So actually, it happened on a Saturday. I went from Warrensburg back to Columbia. My sister was a cheerleader at Mizzou. So that Friday night, I went back to see her. Went out, and it definitely crossed my mind. I was, on the fence. Should I just head back up to Warrensburg? Should I just, go to this party? My girlfriend at the time, she was a soccer player at Warrensburg. She stayed with me throughout the entirety of everything. I've definitely blessed in that department. She's my rock for sure. And so I was definitely on the fence. I didn't know whether to go to the party, go back to Warrensburg. For some reason, I decided I needed to be at that party. And everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in that 100%. So I ultimately think that was the right choice. I mean, I've definitely learned a whole different appreciation for this crazy thing we called life due to the events that I went through, and I think it was valuable nevertheless.
Yeah. Give us a glimpse of the events happened. You were shot twice. Obviously, you went to the hospital. You were clinging to life for a minute, right? You didn't know if and your family came, and I know we don't have hours to talk about this, but talk about kind of the journey. A little bit about the journey from kind of the when you realized what happened to you're fully back doing the things that you're doing, and we'll get into that in just a minute too.
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely at rock bottom when it happened. I didn't know if I was going to even make it. I was trying to breathe. Long story short, I got on a helicopter, got life flighted to the university, spent about a week and a half in the ICU. They got me stable. I went from the ICU to Rusk Rehab Center in Columbia. I kind of picked up pretty quick that I needed more intensive care than what they could provide me with. So that's when my mom did what moms do best. She got on her computer, started doing some magic, and before I knew it, I was getting on a jet, and I was flown out to Denver, Colorado, to Craig Rehab Center, and that's exactly what I needed. I spent about 3 months out there, relearning everything. I mean, both my arms got taken away. Basically, I was shot in the brachial plexus. That's what controls all the nerves going down your right arm. My left arm, where I got shot, they completely had to rebuild my elbow. So I was in rough shape for a long time, but I just continued to have to grind to trust the bigger picture. My faith was definitely put to the test. My body was definitely put to the test. My mind was put to the test. But ultimately, I knew that if I gave it all I had day in and day out, that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just whether you can put the work in that needs to be put in to see that light and get there. So.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about your supporting cast, right? I mean, I think that this is my own opinion that I know you had a strong family prior. You certainly have a strong family now, and I think in times of crisis, and I use that word. I mean, crisis is probably an understatement in what happened to you, but I think true support shows up, right? You really understand who really has your back and who doesn't, and the things that we've talked about. Obviously, talk about your family and that. I mean, I think you guys already had a great family, but it just bonded you guys. But also, you mentioned that when you went to Denver too, that there were some people at Craig that weren't easy on you, right? They challenged you and they really forced you. Talk to us about that and how important that was in your journey.
Yeah, so as far as the support goes, it was a weird time. So that was peak COVID. I was only allowed to have one person, even in the ICU room at a time. I couldn't see both my parents at the same time. I wasn't aware of the support that was in the lobby. So, it was weird. I knew the support system that I had, but it wasn't as visible.
Sure.
It didn't take long to, realize the community that I had backing me. And then when I got to Craig in Denver, my mom was with me the entirety of through everything. She never left my side. My dad was there. My sisters made countless trips to Denver, my grandparents, my friends. So, that was definitely probably the most important part of my rehab journey, was just the support system that I had in the community that backed me. I mean, I never felt as if I was going through this alone, and that was very vital to overcoming all this.
Yeah, again, I can't even begin to comprehend what you went through, Tegan, but to me, there's two aspects that you were challenged with in your journey back to where you are today. Because I mean, we'll get there, but I mean, it's incredible how what you do every day. But one is physical, right? There was a physical element to kind of get back into being able to be physically able to do the things that you do. And the other one was mental. Really making sure that you stayed mentally, and I'm guessing they were not mutually exclusive, right? Like the more physically stronger you got, and where you could see things, it helped with your mentality. Talk to us about that aspect and kind of maybe the ebbs and flows. And when was there a point where you just said, "Shit, I got this. I might never ever be who I was, but I still can do all the things that I want to do in life." Talk to us about that, because that would be, to me, interesting just mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I think mental toughness is important no matter what it is you're going through. I mean, you have to look at. I mean, you can, that saying. How does that saying go? You can either look at the glasses half full or half empty, and that's exactly kind of the way I had to go about things. It was definitely one day at a time, but every day that I would spend at Craig, a task would get easier. I'd get a little faster at getting dressed, or a little better at transferring into my wheelchair. So every day, I just would focus on the positives and focus on the growth. And when you're looking at the day, it might not really seem like you came that far, but when you kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture, it's really easy to see how far you've come, and just to not be hard on yourself and focus too much on what you can't do, but focus on what you can. They say that, living life with a spinal cord injury, you might have been able to do 12,000 things before you were hurt, and then after you're hurt, you can do 10,000. So you can either focus on the 2,000 you can't do, or the 10,000 that you still can. And it's all about, where you focus your energy. And it's. I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't tough. It certainly was tough, and it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and hopefully the hardest thing I ever do have to go through. But it's just constant faith and constant positivity, and just mental toughness. You just gotta focus on the good. What you still have.
Was there I call it like a tipping point where you said, "Okay, I'm not going to focus on the 2,000 that I can't do. I'm not going to focus on what happened to me. I'm going to focus solely on getting better and getting back to doing what I want to do in life." Was there a point? Was it gradual, or from the beginning were you like, "Nope, I'm going straight ahead"?
So it was actually just about right in the beginning, whenever the doctor came in and gave me a quick diagnosis on my injuries. I mean, there was still a lot up in the air, a lot of speculation, but, he just kind of gave it to me straight. And my dad was right there, and after the doctor left the room, obviously there's a lot of emotions going through my head. I mean, I'm an 18-year-old freshman in college that just was told that he's never going to walk again. So that was a tough pill to swallow. I was definitely at rock bottom, and my dad just kind of looked at me and said, "Look, I'm not going to feel sorry for you, and I don't want you to feel sorry for yourself. We'll just take this one day at a time and start to climb back up." So, in that moment, I kind of realized I had a long road ahead, but, make it through it.
Yeah, I mean, and just knowing that, you had that support from the beginning and no one was going to feel sorry for you, you kind of just, there was only one way to look, right? It was forward. And that's what you did. I mean, I've made that way easier. But I mean, like you said, 18 years old, no, you're never going to walk again. It'd be easy just to kind of fold up tent. But you had that supporting cast and you made it. I've heard you on stage several times, and the way that you connect and the details, and again, I know we don't have all the time here, but talk to us about kind of your, which I think is an interesting thing. That's why I want our audience to listen to it. Talk to us about, you were, how much did you weigh going before the event, before you were shot? Then you got down to what? And then talk to us about that really quick.
Yeah. So whenever I got injured, I was weighing about 215. I've always been big into the gym. I love lifting weights. I feel like that's, really good for the mind and the body,
Sure.
just to get into the weight room and try to look and feel the best that you possibly could feel. So it's 215 when I got hurt. I think fast forward, 2.5, 3 weeks, whenever I got to Craig, they weighed me at like 145. So I just lost so much weight. I lost all my strength. I couldn't even hardly lift a fork up to my mouth to eat. It was a lot of rough days, a lot of long days, but you just gotta keep on keeping on. And sooner rather than later, I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and ultimately got back to living the life that I want to live. I mean, I'm still doing everything that I have ever wanted to do. I mean, you never know what your life's going to look like. I think there's only one person that has a plan for what your life's going to look like, and it's certainly not you. It's just constantly seizing the opportunity when the opportunities present themselves and just making the best out of the situation that you're dealt ultimately.
Yeah, and you've certainly done that, which, again, is another amazing aspect to your whole journey. Every time I've heard you talk, I just look in the mirror and say, I have nothing to bitch, moan, and complain about. My life.
The craziest part is I can say the same, for myself. Yeah. Whenever I got to Craig, if anyone could have pulled the poor me card, I could have pulled it countless times. But then I get to Craig and I see quads where their hands and legs don't work, and then I see the people with brain injuries, and it's not hard to look around and see someone that has it worse than you do.
Yeah.
And that's
a solid point, Tegan. That it's all about perspective, right? Like it's all about perspective and where you're at. And I appreciate you saying that. Kind of puts me back into reality. But let's get back to you live an everyday normal life. And again, I mean, you drive, you work, you go skiing, you go to, I mean, you do all, you're back in the gym. I mean, I've seen all of this, and talk to us about that. Like, again, I know that's a mental thing, but you have people who are physically capable and have all their legs and everything and still don't go to the gym. Don't do some of that stuff. So talk to us about those things and how everyday life is it's just who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately living life with a spinal cord injury, you got to get creative. I'm faced with challenges every day, and I kind of got to scratch my head and be like, all right, how are we going to make this work? Whether that's a set of steps I got to figure out how I'm going to climb up, or a doorway that I can't fit through. Whatever the case might be. But it's very important to just not give up. There's always a way to make it work. Whether that's skiing, I would have never thought in a million years whenever I was first told that I would never walk again. I thought every activity that I've ever loved is just no longer possible, and that's not the case at all. I've just had to get creative. I've learned that I can still ski, I can still hunt, I can still go to concerts, I can still swim, I can still do all these things that I've always loved to do, and that life is certainly not over. But it goes back to that square one. Whenever I'm laying in the ICU room, I could have either gave up and just rolled over and called it quits, or I could have kept on pushing. And I think there's definitely some value in fulfillment with continuing to push forward and not give up. That's whenever you discover the true joys in life. Nothing good comes easy. That's for sure. And I've definitely realized that. It takes work. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it was an easy comeback, but whenever you do hard things, you really get the rewards at the end.
Yeah. Let me backtrack for a minute. There's so much. This is so rich, and the audience is going to have so many takeaways. There's already, if you haven't taken away anything by now, I mean, I don't know. Let's go back. So you mentioned you lost two best friends that night, right? Yes. One deceased. One is probably living a life sentence. I don't know exactly what, if that's done or final. Have you forgiven? Have you visited? Talking about that.
I think you have to forgive. I don't think that's good for the soul to hold grudges. I think ultimately, that's what the Bible says. You're supposed to forgive. That's what you're supposed to do, even though it's hard to do sometimes. Ultimately, I think it makes you feel a lot better about the situation if you just forgive and move past it. And that's exactly what I've done. I forgive. I haven't talked to him. Like I said, he was one of my very best friends up until that night, and I don't think there's anything that could be said to make it make sense, and I don't think there ever will be anything said to make it make sense. And I've kind of accepted that and forgive, and I'm just, focusing on living the best life that I can possibly live rather than holding grudges it's all about putting your energy in the right direction in the right places. So you just kind of forgive and forget and move on to the next chapter in your life.
Powerful, man. That is powerful. It would be easy to not do it, but like you mentioned, you're looking forward, right? The wake.
Like you say all the time, you can either look in the rearview mirror, you can look forward, or whatever that saying is that you.
Yeah,
like
the
saying.
windshield.
Yep, that's exactly the way I try to live my life.
That's awesome. You have given nuggets of kind of your lessons learned and guidance, and when you talk to audiences, because I know your name's starting to get out there, and audiences, just your story just resonates with people, Tegan. That really does. What are the top 2 or 3 takeaways that you want your? I know there's a million takeaways from your story and the way that you present it, but what would be those things that you really hope audiences walk away with and say, yeah, if you take nothing else, just keep these couple things in mind? What would those be?
Yeah, number one, I would say without a doubt is, I feel like everyone needs to realize how valuable life itself is. First of all, the odds of us even being born and put on this earth is, like 1 in 300 trillion or whatever the number is. This life is a valuable thing, and you're just really wasting it if you're not going to give it your all and strive for your very best. So yeah, that's number one, realize how valuable this life actually is. And number two, the fact that tomorrow is never promised. I would have never in a million years thought that's how I was going to go out, and how close I did come to exiting this earth in a way that I never would have in a million years thought. I think everyone kind of sees themselves, they look so far down the line, and they think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and just really pushing things off that shouldn't be pushed off. So that's number two, is just to realize that tomorrow is never promised, and to just make the most out of today. And number three is just staying positive even when it seems impossible. That's been such a game changer for me. Just even when it's hard, every day is not just going to be easy to remain positive, but it's just kind of pushing those negative thoughts out. And just focusing on the good and what you can still do and what you can still achieve, and just becoming the best version of yourself.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So tell the audience a little bit. I know that you're keynoting and that's starting to ramp up, and so what else is happening in your life? Give us kind of the current day snapshot of Tegan.
So right now, definitely, first of all, you got to set goals. You got to visualize where you want to go and what you want to achieve. That's definitely one of my goals, is to, get into public speaking, show people that their life really isn't that bad and there's always something to be thankful for. So that's definitely at the top. And then me and my dad actually opened a men's health clinic coming up on a year ago, in October 15th will be a year. So that's where I spend most of my time. I've really proved to myself through game day. So it's Game Day Men's Health. It's a men's health clinic here in Columbia. And I've proved to myself that, just because I'm in a chair doesn't mean I can't still, run a company. It doesn't mean that I can't still change other people's lives and, show up and show out day in and day out and give it my all. And that's definitely it's helped me show myself that I still got it. But, at the end of the day, I feel like, I need to get out and I need to share my story, and I need to, impact and inspire others. That's what this life's all about. I feel like you have to find your niche and figure out how to change other people's lives for the better. And that's kind of where my energy and mindset is right now, is just, what can I do to, make this world a better place?
That's awesome. How game days coming up on a year? How's the growth been? How things been there?
It's like any company. You gotta live and learn, and figure out what you can change to improve. But it's been good. I mean, absolutely no complaints. I've surrounded myself with awesome staff. You never want to be the smartest person in the room, and I am 1,000% not the smartest person on the game day staff. But that's life. You got to surround yourself with awesome people that have similar views to what you have, and my staff's awesome. My dad's awesome. He's my mentor. He gives me those those words of encouragement when I need them most, and it's been awesome. I love it.
That's good. You and I have talked. I need to get up there. I need to get things checked.
Any guy. Yeah. Game day. No, if you're 40 and you're starting to feel like you're out of your prime, that's you don't got to be out of your prime. There's things you can do to get back in the game for sure.
Yeah. Publicly, I'll put it on the podcast. Because we've talked about it offline, but publicly, I do need to get up there and make an appointment. So we've talked about this. We're working on. I think there's a lot of. Again, every audience could benefit from having you on stage. If people want to find you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my email is first last name at gmail.com. Tagen Higgins, TagenHiggins. Trying to get into the whole TikTok thing, posting some TikToks, and that's just my first and last name. If you search that, I'll come up. And then my Instagram is first name _21. So
okay.
It's all pretty similar. If you just search my first and last name, I should come up and drop a follow for sure.
Absolutely. And then I think there's also you have a one sheet, right? That you can send to people, kind of your bio and story.
If you reach out via email, I'd love to, answer any questions that the audience might have. As I'm sure they have tons of questions. People always do. So email me. I'd love to answer any questions, and Yeah,
and I'll throw this out there too. I mean, if you can't find Tegan, which I'm sure he just gave you some good place to find him. I mean, just get a hold of our staff and our office. We know how to get a hold of him and get some things booked. So any final comments, thoughts, things that you just somebody listen to this. What are you hoping that when they stop listening to this that they'll go out and take action on?
Yeah, I mean, just you only get one shot at this life. Go out, seize the opportunity, live life to the fullest, and by all means realize that you're going to face challenges and controversy, but we all do. It's not like you can look in the mirror and be like, poor me, because every single person on this earth can look in the mirror and say, poor me. Why am I going through this? Why me? Why was I chose to go through this, challenge? But, in all reality, any challenge you go through, you can kind of take a step back and learn from it. You can learn, the good as well as the bad, and, just keep on keeping on.
Yeah. That's great. I will tell you, even if you don't want to book Tegan for a keynote, or you don't have, you're not one that books keynotes, just following him on social media and watching his story and the things that he posts, it's they're uplifting, they're inspiring, they're motivating, they're challenging. So I would definitely say engage. And like you said, make sure you follow him. Find him on TikTok, find him on Instagram, get a hold of him via email. He's just an inspiration all the way around. So Tegan, I appreciate your time. I appreciate, kind of the quick 30 minutes here. Again, we could have spent hours. I've had several conversations with you over the last year, but just every time, and I say this authentically, every time you and I have a conversation, or every time I watch you speak from stage, it impacts my life, and I learn something new. And so I just want to say that, if you're not impacting anybody else, know that, you got one huge fan that continues to follow you. So again, thanks for being on the podcast, and let's just keep making awesome stuff happen, buddy.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks.